What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All the Things Sword of Truth, the podcast that seeks the truth about the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. I'm Jade.
And I'm Nate.
And we're back again this week, getting into Chapter 9 of Wizard's First Rule. Before we do that, though, Nate's got some things he wants to let you guys know.
Well, Jade and I have been paying attention to the Facebooks and the socials and the Instas and our email, and we have been blown away by all of the new listeners that we've been getting lately. And we just wanted to take a minute to thank you all so much for listening. You, I'm talking to you. If you're listening right now, thank you for being here. You could be listening to anything, and you're here with us. And we just appreciate the hell out of that.
Whoop whoop. Thanks for spending at least an hour of your day with us. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we don't even like spending an hour of our day with us sometimes.
Love you.
Love you.
And all of you.
On top of that, Jade and I wanted to start a new bit because you guys have been just blowing the roof off with all your comments, not to mention the reviews. Thank you very much. And you are all being entered in our 3-book giveaway. But we wanted to start a new bit from you guys. So without further ado, I'll give you favorite fan theories. All right. So earlier today, I got an email from Greg Cross. He's one of the listeners. He says, in talking about Darken Rawl and who would name their little baby Darken, spoiler alert, his father's name was Panis Rawl. So when your name is Panis, Darken probably seems like an improvement. And I agree. He's absolutely right. Panis is a pretty horrible name. Darken, not quite as bad. Plus, it's nowhere near penis, so...
Right, we know who got teased more as a little kid.
Oh, absolutely.
Except Panis's dad was probably also an evil dictator, so he probably just had kids killed.
Yeah, probably a pretty fantastic piece of shit.
Yeah. I think it runs in the family a little bit.
So, thank you, Greg, for reaching out and giving us that theory. I do agree with you. I think that Panis's name is much worse than Darken's. And we'll probably see that through to the next chapters.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep revisiting some of the things that you guys are commenting and leaving for us from the last chapters. So keep it up. Make sure that you get on our socials or our email. That one specifically came from podcastatt@gmail.com. And yeah, we just love hearing from you. Literally any way that we hear from you guys.
And one last thing. I wanted to bring up our 3-book giveaway. I know I had just mentioned it a minute ago. There may be some confusion as to where you can leave a review. In this case, we've got a tip for you. If you go to Spreaker.com and look up this show, there you are able to leave a review. Not only that, but you will not need to then send us a screenshot to our email because we will get notified directly when you leave that review, thus entering you into the giveaway. Easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy.
And as we know from our favorite wizard, Zed, nothing's ever easy, except this. This is pretty easy. And we thank you again in advance. It helps us out, and it helps other people find this show.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to the Sword of Truth series book club on Facebook. We recently joined that group, and they allowed us to post a link to the podcast and basically promote the podcast to a lot of you that are listening right now. You found us there. And that's really cool because we don't have a very good way of reaching out to you guys unless we can post in some of those groups. So that means a lot. Once again, I'm going to say, hey, Sean, thanks for bringing us into the group in the first place. And yeah, just thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Again, it's awesome.
Yes, it is. And now I think we're ready to get into the synopsis. So in this chapter, we find ourselves sifting through another info dump about what a seeker actually is and what the fuck Darken is doing.
Yeah, what he's getting up to over there in Tapahara.
Which is a handy little piece of information to have.
Yeah, it's good to know. So we're starting right from the end of the last chapter. Zed and Kaylin were kneeling on the ground, professing their love to Richard's feet, and Richard is confused about what the fuck's happening, really. So they stand up, and Richard's like, what is a seeker, though?
That's right. What is a seeker? Zed says that it's a very smart first question for the new seeker to ask, although it's not a very easily answered one. And that's kind of what almost 2/3 of this chapter is about. trying to get a good solid explanation of what it is Richard is actually supposed to do now that he's the Seeker.
Right. But right away, he's confused about where this super awesome sword has been kept for this whole time.
Yeah, he's known Zed a long time. He's like, I've never seen that thing before. And the next little chunk fucking cracks me up. Zed's like, well, I had it in the closet. And Richard's like, no, you didn't. I've seen your closet. He's like, not in that closet. The other closet. The invisible closet. My wizard's closet, he says.
Just almost like rolling his eyes at him, like, duh, I have a wizard's cabinet.
Well, I've never seen that before. Well, you're not supposed to. It's my fucking closet. Stay the hell out.
At first, I was a little bit confused when Richard asked how long he had it and how he got it, because I kind of thought that when he was all pissed off at the council, he just, like, took off with it. But apparently he didn't, because when you're given the sword as a Seeker, you get to keep it as long as you live or as long as you choose to be the Seeker.
So anybody with a sword could basically say, this is my sword, and just keep it, and not even do anything with it. They could just say, I'm the Seeker. This is my shit.
Right. But in between Seekers, it belongs to the first wizard, which is why Zed took it upon himself to go take it from the last guy who was the Seeker.
Yeah, the last guy that had it became entangled with a witch woman. So Zed, while this Seeker was distracted, just went and grabbed it.
Which is a little bit shady, because I mean, I get that maybe he didn't deserve the sword, but he totally straight up stole that shit.
I think the point that's made here is that it's the Seeker's choice to keep the sword. And as long as he says, I'm the Seeker and this is my sword, then he's the Seeker and that's his sword. So he took this thing when it was not in between Seekers.
Right. Yeah.
He did steal it from the Seeker because he didn't feel like that Seeker deserved it.
Yeah. He made the choice that the guy who had it was not worthy of the sword anymore. So he was like, you know what? I've had about enough of this shit. I'm going to just go over there and I'm going to scoop it up.
Yeah. So he took it and he goes, and now it's yours.
And if I was Richard at this point, I might be feeling like I was holding stolen property. Like, is that dude going to come back for this?
Right. I mean, yeah, I have a sword to fight him off now, but is the right thing to do to be like, sorry, dude, my old crazy friend, he hangs out on rocks naked. He took your sword. I apologize. Please take it back.
He probably imbibed a little bit too much wine. It's fine.
You know what I'm going to go do today? I'm going to go get that fucking sword back.
You know, I bet you it was something along those lines, though. Zed was probably sitting there in his reason chair, like, you know what? Nah, this has gone on too long. I'm going to get that shit back.
I can totally picture Zed doing that. Just kind of tapping his fingers on the chair and finally standing up and be like, nope, time to go. Let's go.
Cat, watch the house. At this point, Richard is not comfortable. He's feeling like he's being trapped into this super high-intensity bullshit that he has no control over. And he asks Kaylin, like, is this why you came here? And she lets him know, like, I had no idea it was going to be you, dude. I would rather it be anybody but you.
And Richard at that point is looking at his oldest friend and his newest friend and being like, you guys think I can save everyone? Me, Woods Guide Richard. That somehow I can stop Dark and Raw, and a wizard like Zed, who we now know to be the great wizard, can't stop him. But you guys think that I can with this sword. But he's got magic, but I have a sword. Whoa.
And he's like, I didn't apply for this job.
Right?
I had a pretty good one. I was, escorting pretty high-class people, and now I have to go kill a really crazy dude from Dahara. Sounds great. All right, cool.
Right, and here it says that terror rose inside him. He is doubtful, but he's also terrified of what the implications of this are. There is a ruler of a far-off land who commands magic and whose evil minions are crossing two magical boundaries just to seek out this woman that's now his friend and him, and he's just feeling like a small-town boy and is completely helpless except for the sword.
I almost started singing Journey right there.
I promise that I will not sing Journey on this podcast. No, I amend that. I will try not to sing Journey on this podcast.
I had to stop myself. I'm not even going to lie.
I did too.
But Zed's like, all right, man, come sit down. We're going to talk about this, and then you can decide. Okay? Real quick, though, I'm just going to remind you. See that thing in the sky? Yeah, you're being watched. All right, now let's go talk.
I think he did that to really get Richard's attention. You're here with me. You're here with Kaylin. But I don't want you to forget that there is that evil man. And not only is he far away and powerful, he's watching you. That's what that cloud means, and you damn well know it. This is serious, and it's imminent.
Yeah, it's not just like, all right, haha, this was fun. I'm gonna go back to my my little cabin in the woods, though, and pretend like it didn't happen. It's definitely happening to all of us right now.
Well, and even if he did go back to the cabin in the woods, he's still being watched.
Right.
So eventually, it will come back to find him.
Right. And as they talk, Richard puts the sword between them, like, I'm not even going to put this on my lap. This is not mine, okay?
I'm not touching it. You touched it last.
This is going to sit between us. We're all going to know that I have not accepted this position yet, okay?
So, this is when Zed starts to describe the magic of Orden. It's dormant until the 3 boxes are put into play, which he says that's what it's called when they become active. He goes, it's not easy. You have a year until you can open one, but you need all 3 of them in your possession to open 1 box. If you fail to do so, you die.
This reminds me of when you're like setting up a board game with your family or your friends, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go through the rules now. And you all have to try and keep it all in your brain while I read them. Because it's just, the boxes are put into play, and you have to have all of them at once. And if you don't, then you roll 6s and you die.
Yeah, this is a pretty complicated explanation, and Richard is coming into this cold. I imagine at least most of you have read this book before listening to this podcast, so you have a decent understanding of what the boxes of Orden are, what they do, what they're for, etc., etc. If you're coming into this book cold, I could imagine that this is wildly frustrating and very confusing. I remember being very confused, and I had to ask Jade, wait, what? She's like, okay, you need all of them to open one, and if you can't do it within a year, you die. That's the premise. But depending on which box you open, it could have different outcomes.
Right.
If you open the right box, you gain the power of Orden. Basically, you're all-powerful and you control the power of life itself. If you open the other box, you die. Mm-hmm. So shitty. However, if you open the third box, it's not just you that dies. It's every single living thing on planet Earth dies. All of life itself is swallowed up and life ceases to exist.
Which makes you the biggest dick of all.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
But Richard didn't need to think about any of this. He already knew all of this. And he knew Zed wasn't even touching how bad this could really be. It was just interesting to me that he's sitting there like, oh yeah. Power of Orden, that's real weird. What else happens? Okay, keep talking.
Passively throwing interest at Zed. You'd think Zed would be able to know that Richard had a clue to some of this.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good friends. I mean, Richard might be a really, really good actor. We don't know.
I don't know. He doesn't strike me as a liar, so I don't think he'd be able to act this out very well. But I'm not sure. Obviously, he does it well enough to fool Zed in the moment.
I think maybe because his questions are short, maybe he could get away with the question part of it, being like, what happens with the other boxes? I think where he might fall short is the reaction. Like when somebody tells you that someone can open a box and it lets out magic that imbibes you with the power of life, which means you can kill somebody from the other side of the world with just thinking about it, or like create massive plague or grow a ton of crops and heal a whole bunch of people. Like you have literally all the power of anything.